Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Rebel News live stream on this, a Monday, July 7th, 2025. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a bit about my co-host, shall I? Folks, do you know that today is National Father-Daughter Take a Walk Day? My co-host is not a father. She is a mother. She does have daughters, but this being Pride season, she can identify as a father. See, it all works out. Bob's your uncle or your aunt, as the case may be. She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is the sensational Sheila Gunn Reid. Hey there, Sheila. It's been a while. How you doing?
Yeah, it has been a while. Weeks, David. But you had some well-deserved time off. And I've been holding down the fort as best I could without you. It's also International Peace and Love Day, which means we should have some fire bombings and assaults on our hands. But also National Dive Bar Day on a Monday? Okay.
Wow. You know, by the way, Sheila, what is your definition of a dive bar exactly?
You know what, it's like one of those things that you know it if you see it. Sometimes they are sports bars. There's an obvious group of regulars sitting at the bar, like at the wood, as they say. There's not a ton of TVs that are like this year's model. Not a ton of fancy IPAs. They maybe have Coors Light and Pabst. And
well, they don't have Bud Light anymore, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Dive bars sometimes have a certain musty smell. Yeah. Not a bad smell, but just sort of like there's been beer spilled on the floor for generations. You know a dive bar when you see it. It could be any kind of dive bar, a dive sports bar, a dive Irish pub, but you know it when you see it.
You know, I think if I decipher what you're saying, it's got to be authentic. And by that,
Completely.
I mean, beginning in the 90s in Toronto, this city suffered from what I call fake English pub syndrome. So these English pubs would go up and they would have like manufactured, pre-distressed, like British signs and advertisements, but they were brand new. They were just made to look old. The whole thing, it was like Disneyland fake, right? And that's not a real pub, right? You got to go to a place like the Imperial Pub, which is near Young Dundas Square. That is a traditional pub going back maybe a century. The new ones, you can tell it, and it doesn't work for me. I guess it's the same with a dive bar.
It's 100% true. We should tell everybody what we're doing.
Yes.
Instead of hinting at my off-camera drinking habits, we should tell everybody what we're doing. We have a very busy show today, and we have Alexa Laovie joining us towards the end of the show. So we have to sort of stay as best as we can on schedule. So if you're watching us on Rumble, thank you for supporting a great free speech platform, Rumble. It has been with us when nobody else would support us. If you want to support the work that we do over there, because, you know, we'll never take a penny from Mark Carney's Liberals to do the work that we do, you can leave a Rumble rant. That's their paid chat. If it's over the $5 US cutoff, it is mandatory that we're reading it on air, but we frequently get to the ones that fall below that because we do make the time for you, because we acknowledge, you know, people have fewer bucks in their pocket than ever before, and you are choosing to support us. That means something to us. If you're watching us on YouTube, we remain miraculously remonetized over there, and I think it could be a glitch at this point. I think it's a mistake, but we're going to go with it. So if you want to leave us a super chat, that's their paid chat. Same rules apply, but there's another way that you can support us on YouTube. Again, for now, until they figured out that there's a glitch happening here. It's super thanks. That's their paid after the fact comment. That is for those of you who are watching the recorded version of the live stream. So I think that's it. Let's get into the Calgary Stampede.
Yes.
The greatest outdoor show on earth is taking place in Calgary. Now, I find the Calgary Stampede to be a little bit commercial. I like my rodeos a little smaller, a little bit less buckle bunnied, if you know what I mean. However, you know them when you see them. But my fellow Albertans did not let me down. Mark Carney got booed at the Calgary Stampede.
No. Do we have video evidence of that, Sheila?
You better
it's so
believe
unbelievable.
We do. Watch.
Korea. Please welcome the Right Honorable Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada.
Oh my God, everyone's booing.
We're also pleased to be welcomed by the Canadian Army of Korea. Please welcome.
That's
Wow, Sheila.
At the Stampede and Stampedes, like for example, Pancake, you get NHL level attendance at these things.
Yeah.
And that's like an NHL size crowd booing the Prime Minister of Canada in his alleged home province, as if he spent any real time here in the last 40 years. But that makes me happy to see it. And good for Calgarians. Good for you guys.
You know what, Sheila? It makes me happy too, not because necessarily Mark Carney was being booed out of any kind of personal spiteness, but it makes me have some lingering hope for the future of this country. Alberta, much like Texas in the U.S., if Texas ever goes blue, it's game over. Alberta is the most conservative province, and I would make the argument that after what the Liberal government has done to them the last 10 years and other iterations of the Liberal government, if Mark Carney walked into Calgary, Alberta, Canada during the Stampede and got a standing ovation, that's it. I'm making my exit strategy plans, Sheila, because Calgary or Alberta as a whole is the last bastion. And it also speaks volumes, I would say. I saw a recent Abacus poll, I believe it was, Sheila, indicating that if a election were held today, and we're just, 2 months and a bit into, the election of April 28th, the Conservatives would emerge with a minority government. Like, I thought the honeymoon period was at least 6 months. It looks like it's just 2.5. So that gives me hope for the future that Carney is being booed. At least there's a demographic of people in our Dominion that aren't buying this elbows up crapola, which hasn't materialized. I might have been out of the country, but every time I saw a story involving Mark Carney going mano a mano with the big bad orange man to the south, it wasn't elbows up, it was knees down. So as Clara Peller used to say in the Wendy's ads, where's the beef? And I think more people are catching on to that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and I was there when Premier Smith walked into the Pancake Stampede. And again, Pancake Stampede, like 12, 13,000 in the stands every single day. The cheering was off the rev limiter there. Like it was like you were watching the Chuck Wagons to see her walk out. And then you see Carney go into the Calgary Stampede. So a little bigger, a little more commercial. And so you might expect some Liberals maybe to attend there, just, the way that people go to the zoo and look at the zoo animals, like look at these Albertans in their natural element. Let's stare and oogle them. So there could have been some Liberals in the crowd there, but no, Carney got completely booed. And that makes me very happy to see.
Gee, I'm so happy to hear from you, Sheila, that the zoos in Alberta still specialize in exotic zoo animals. Here in Toronto, drag queens are the new species on display, but that's a subject for another day. Now, I have to say, given the video evidence of our next clip, if this whole prime ministerial gig doesn't work out for Mark Carney, if he has to plan a new career, it better not be at a breakfast restaurant. What do I mean by that? Well, let's check out the video evidence, shall we?
Oh my
God. You're worse than Justin.
Okay, there's another clip of him
Yeah.
not even knowing when to flip a pancake. Like, Okay. I should tell everybody why pancakes are part of Stampede culture because it might feel foreign. During Stampede week, breakfast is available everywhere. All the major companies, all the major political parties, they have Stampede breakfasts everywhere, all over the city. You can just roam through the city in the early hours of the morning, just eating pancakes to your heart's delight. And it is a thing that politicians do. And it's particularly hilarious when Eastern politicians or people who have not spent a lot of time being a politician in Alberta, a la Mark Carney, who claims to be a hometown boy, show up and try to flip pancakes. Now, there's another video of him out there where he's trying to flip pancakes, and it's like he's still flipping them when they're liquid and not figuring out how they work. Like, the help has not shown him how to use a spatula.
Yes.
It's the most ridiculous thing. We have...
By the way, Sheila, in case we can find that video, I'm going to say something in defense of Mark Carney, and that is this. That might have been the first time in his adult life in which he flipped a pancake.
You know what? Yes. Okay. For a first timer, like for a quite literal day oneer, not bad. Okay. We'll give him that. We've got, well, maybe we dig that up. We've got Poilievre ripping into Carney's failed attempt at his Stampede breakfast pancake flipping. And then I've got to show you an expert at pancake breakfasts after this. But let's do this one of Poilievre.
Even for Liberals, we have to be hospitable. And so let me start in a spirit of nonpartisanship as a Calgarian to welcome Prime Minister Mark Carney to his very first Stampede in this role. And he had, of course, to do the customary thing and flip some pancakes. Now, he thought he would be great at it because in his trade talks with Trump, he's had so much experience flip-flopping. But still, it didn't go as planned. One of the pancakes got broken in half and the other one splattered everywhere. And he owned up to it. But a careful review of a slow motion replay demonstrated exactly what the problem was. He couldn't figure out whether to put his elbows up or down.
Very good.
So,
you know, Sheila, those were brilliant remarks by Pierre Poilievre. But, you know, in the big picture, can we not get away from these trumped up, obvious photo shoots? I mean, I think the worst one, I think I've said this on the show before, it was in the 80s in Ontario, and Michael Dukakis was in Toronto for some reason, and it was Premier Peterson at the time, and they had a photo op in a subway, and you can see how awkward both were, like looking at the bars, and it was like, oh, what are these bars for? Oh, well, you see, Mr. Dukakis, when the subway is jam-packed, you don't get a seat, you have to stand and you have to, oh, that's why. And I mean, it's just so much pomp and circumstance signifying nothing, I would suggest. Can we just move away from that and just have these leaders give press conferences and give tangible information as opposed to doing pancake flipping? And I bet you after those pancake disasters at Stampede, Sheila, Mark Carney, if he's watching this, is wholeheartedly agreeing with me right now.
I want to show you this. I think Stephen Taylor made it last year. It's Trudeau versus Danielle Smith. And the reason the pancake flip is an important part of Alberta culture is it shows how much time you spend out amongst the people, because it's rodeo season all summer long here, and spring and fall. And so your local politician is out there at the pancake breakfast, flipping pancakes. And for us, this shows how much time you spend with the people, as opposed to talking at the people. You actually are talking with the people. And so let's show that, because as long as Danielle Smith's in power, that woman's better be flipping pancakes, because look at this. Okay, here's Justin Trudeau last year, or 2 years ago, I think.
Deja vu. Wow.
Okay.
Oh.
Now Now you see, the pancake will make or break you.
What a route. You know, the way Danielle Smith was flipping them right into the tray, she just took Trudeau to school, didn't she? I mean, like, that was just something.
Doug Ford almost did it. Now, I think Doug Ford has a strong relationship with food, so he's good at it, but so is she. She's letting him do it.
I would argue if Danielle Smith went into that breakfast restaurant, she'd be a superstar, the way she was flawlessly flipping those pancakes right on target every time. But again, why are we talking pancakes? Let's talk pipeline, shall we?
Yeah, we could do that. We've got. I love to see politicians just absolutely mangle the pancake flip. It makes me really happy. Now, as I said, there are political barbecues at the Stampede also. So pancake breakfast, and then it's barbecues in the evening, and they're held as fundraisers for the political parties. That's where Poilievre was speaking, and he called out the legal and illegal mass immigration to Canada at the Conservative barbecue.
And we will put Canada first in everything that we do, and that includes immigration. Look, we're a welcoming country, but the latest news that the Liberals allowed 17,500 foreign criminals to enter our country by sponging their prior criminal records is just the latest example in the radical, liberal, failed experiment with open borders. And Mark Carney refuses to deport any of these individuals, nor has he changed any of the radical immigration targets that Justin Trudeau left behind. Our housing, our health care, our jobs are overwhelmed. Our young people are cast aside while low-paid temporary foreign workers take their jobs. We must end the abuse in the temporary foreign worker program, the international student program, the refugee system, and we must restore an immigration system that puts our country and its people first. We reject the radical Century Initiative, which Liberals have endorsed, saying that they want to bring our population to 100 million people over this century. Look, we don't blame people for wanting to come here. Almost all of us trace our lineage back to immigrants, other than our First Peoples. But that immigration must be controlled. It must be in numbers that we can absorb. It must be the right people at the right pace that will allow us to succeed as Canadians and integrate and be one united country.
And you know, Sheila, this kind of common sense is yet another reason why, for the last 2+ months, I wake up every morning going, I can't believe the Liberals are still in power. I know there was a whole, unfortunate series of events, coincidences, timing, and whatnot, but, it wasn't that absolutely spot on. And, shame on the Liberals for being so untransparent that 17,600 criminal records of migrants were expunged. At the same time, you have peaceful counter-demonstrators to pro-Hamas rallies, independent journalists being arrested, right?
Tamara Leach has a criminal record now for what? The honking? And as I said when I was discussing this with Lise last week about those criminal records being expunged, because they're not giving us a lot of details on like the makeup of those criminal records. Of course, we don't want their names and stuff, but like tell us, like how many are assault, how many are bar fights and weed convictions. I believe that it is very few of those. If someone were to say to me, Sheila, this man is a trucker. He's from the United States. He has an assault conviction from when he was 18. He's otherwise lived a good life. Should he be allowed to enter into Canada? 100%. Completely. I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe in redemption. I think both countries are too hard on those sorts of people, but not hard enough on, I don't know, maybe ISIS terrorists who were in ISIS video beheading somebody and then were given Canadian citizenship to only go on to plan another terror attack. Those people are getting into the country, but the trucker isn't. And I have a problem with both the Americans and the Canadians on this issue. They don't allow for any sort of redemption, and then the process is too difficult for those people to overcome to even deal with it. And yet we've got these bad people from failed states having their records expunged to come into Canada.
Oh, Sheila, I think you forgot one of the most blatant examples that has little to do with redemption and more to do with rewarding, and that was Justin Trudeau's 2016 Lotto Max gift to our homegrown Al-Qaeda terrorist, Omar Khadr, who killed a U.S. serviceman, partially blinded another, and for what? Hurt feelings? And the ostensible policy reason, pardon me?
It was sleeplessness.
Yeah. You know, and I mean, and to think, and what I found really appalling about that, where it was the Liberals at the time, if you recall, Sheila, was if we were to fight this in court, it would be way more than 10.5 million. First of all, I have a hard time believing that. Secondly, all of a sudden, the Liberal Party of Canada are fiscal conservatives.
Right.
Are you kidding
Also, I don't
me?
care. I don't care. I don't care. It costs a lot of money. Costs a lot of money to put Clifford Olson in jail too.
Yep.
But I think it was money well spent. We've also got another clip of Poilievre at the Calgary Stampede, saying that he will legitimize the demands of Western Canada to end our unfair treatment at the hands of the federal government and the Laurentian Liberals.
And let me tell you, we are going to fight for our province again. We'll fight for oil and gas, for farmers, for low taxes, for decentralization, a stronger military, and a smaller federal government so that we can have a bigger Alberta. And if elected in Battle River Crowfoot, I'll use the platform of Leader of the Opposition to amplify the legitimate demands of Western Canada to end the unfair treatment. The era of Ottawa telling Alberta to pay up and shut up must end once and for all. And let me tell you.
Yeah, you won't hear that out of Mark Carney's lips.
No. Although Poilievre has to say these things very loudly because he's running in Battle River Crowfoot, one of the most conservative places on, I think, the face of the earth. And, you know, he of course is going to win that riding. He just absolutely is. But yeah, he's an Albertan again. He was an Albertan before. He's from Calgary. He's an Albertan again. And I think the federal conservatives, of course, they're always the ones who are talking about Western fairness in the federal government, but he's got to be louder than ever because these are once again his issues.
And by the way, you're right. That should be a slam dunk. Although in politics, never say the cat is out of the bag, because when you say that, the cat does get out of the bag. Yeah. Typically, you know, people are busy, you know, taking the kids to soccer practice. Oh, you know, it's in the bag, so I don't need to show up and cast my vote. I hope that kind of, you know, attitude doesn't set in, but he should win that handily. But I understand, Sheila, isn't that group, whose name I forget, the ones that like to stack the ballot with so many candidates? I think in Pierre Poilievre's own writing, it was like 84, 91 candidates. I heard something that they're pledging to put 200
sure
people.
They are. Pardon me? They are. Sure they are, and good luck to them. The problem is that they underestimate the mind of the Albertan. Yeah. In that they were counting on urban liberals or urban centrists to get fatigued and just put a check mark beside somebody's name on the ballot in Carleton. That won't happen in Alberta. We're not scared of hard work. Like, we're not going to get tired of looking down the ballot to find the P and putting a check mark. That's not us. And if you think that we're going to fall victim to that, have you ever met an Albertan? Like, we're not scared of hard work, and looking down a ballot isn't hard work for us. And I think it might have worked in some parts of the Carleton riding. It ain't going to work here. So they can try, they can waste their resources, they can waste their time. It is voter interference.
It is.
100%. And they can cry about democracy and election integrity, but they're the ones damaging it. They can do all of that, but it's just not going to work here. It won't.
No, you're 100% right, Sheila. More on Premier Smith, I see, but we need to take an ad break first.
Wait, I have to tell you about something that's happening coming up here on September 5th and 6th in Calgary. It's from our friends at the Canada Strong and Free Network. What is the West's place in Canada? Don't miss this year's Canada Strong and Free Networking Conference in Calgary, September 5th and 6th. Now, it's got speakers such as author Tristan Hopper, Lord Conrad Black, Premier Danielle Smith, and Preston Manning. Now, these things usually sell out. I want to tell you to go, not now, but after the stream and get your ticket because early bird rates apply until August 4th. So reserve your tickets today at canadastrongandfree.network. And again, that's September 5th and 6th. And it's just a complete packed day. It's at the Weston Calgary Airport. Anyways, just a full day. Adam Bullock, Brian Lilly, okay. Danielle Smith, Preston Manning, Conrad Black, Marco Navarogini, who I'm a huge fan of. Looks like that's Michael Binion there. Tristan Hopper. Anyways, full packed day. Interesting selection of some of those speakers, but that's okay. Anyways, it's the Strong and Free Networking Conference, Canada Strong and Free.network.
Yeah, it is a great lineup, although I do question a few of the speakers.
Let's hit an ad break.
Okay.
Alberta powers Canada, but Ottawa keeps limiting our potential. The Alberta Next panel wants your ideas to strengthen our sovereignty within a united Canada. Help decide what's next for Alberta. Visit alberta.ca/next.
Gun bans make great distractions.
Trudeau may be gone, but Carney has picked up his same rhetoric.
We will quickly, and I mean quickly, reinvigorate the buyback of assault-style firearms.
Hunters, collectors, competitors, and defenders of tradition are still being targeted. While criminals run wild under Liberal policy. But we are fighting back. By delaying and dismantling unjust legislation, by confronting policy at its source, like on the global stage at the United Nations, through our unmatched record of political lobbying and our Save Firearms program, actively saving firearms from government crushers in real time. And we're not done yet. Join us, Canada's National Firearms Association, in defense of freedom.
Well, there you go, Sheila. And we shall move on to Premiers Danielle Smith and Doug Ford. By the way, I should tell everybody, I was recently doing some traveling. My last destination was California. Sheila, I have a question for anyone that might be listening in the dairy industry. Do you know in the entire state of California, it would seem, you cannot get 18% cream? And I'll tell you, that makes a big difference in coffee. Whether
huge.
You're doing half and half, it's not as good. And
it's not.
And horribly. Edible oil product. I think this is an American thing. No. As much as I adore the oil industry, not when it comes to edible oils. Why is there no 18% cream?
I know, it's atrocious. And the higher the fat in the cream, the better, the lower it is in sugars, which means it's better for you. And don't get me started on glycation. So anyways, when I travel, I suffer. I would just rather drink black coffee than drink the mud that is coffee with 10% cream, or even worse, milk. Gross.
Sheila, that's exactly what I did. It's only when I'm out of Canada do I drink coffee black, because cream is an integral component. Gee, do you think we might have it wrong with supply management? You can't get it.
No, because I still don't think I should be paying almost $6 for a liter of 18% cream. Don't get me started on that. But yeah, as someone who avoids sugars and carbohydrates like they are the poisons that they are, I just go without cream in other parts of the world because I just can't. Your coffee is just a disappointment.
100%.
It is. Yeah.
It's a shame.
Okay. Yep. All right. Let's move on to Premier Smith. Doug Ford was here for Stampede. Boy, I bet you he's just munching his way through some pancake breakfast and then some barbecues in the evening. Eating his way through the Stampede. He was here to announce that they've reached an agreement to pursue pipelines and pathways to export Canadian energy and natural resources across the country and around the world. That's great. But what happens when we run up against Quebec? Anyway.
Today marks an important step forward in uniting our country as Alberta joins forces with Ontario to pursue our shared goals of economic growth, opportunity, and prosperity. We're signing 2 memorandums of understanding that will see us advance pipelines and pathways to boost exports of homegrown energy and critical minerals to markets across Canada and across the world, and work collaboratively to support both Ontario's automotive industry as well as Alberta's liquor manufacturing industry, industries that contribute substantially to our provincial economies. The first of these agreements formalizes our commitment to working together to maximize the economic value of Canada's energy resources and enhance Canada's energy security and global competitiveness. We're uniting with Ontario to amplify our voices and double down on our efforts to carve a path forward together for Alberta, for Ontario, and for Canada. Through this agreement, we'll work together to explore ways to improve networks and corridors that better connect our energy and critical minerals to markets here at home, as well as international markets around the globe. We'll focus on supporting industry efforts to build oil and gas pipelines and refining, processing, and supply chains for energy and critical minerals between Alberta and Ontario. We'll work towards accelerating our exports across industries. And that means we're seeking to add more rail lines to increase capacity and enhance access to ports, including to sites in James Bay and southern Ontario. And we will share expertise to advance development of nuclear energy solutions so our provinces can keep up with the ever-growing demand on Alberta and Ontario's electricity grids. We know there's strength in taking a united front, but we cannot achieve our shared provincial goals without cooperation from the federal government. It's vital that the federal government gets fully on board with creating the conditions necessary to strengthen Canada's economy and competitiveness, improve investor confidence, and grow productivity. Ottawa must answer our calls and remove all federal barriers that have harmed Canada's ability to grow the energy sector and other industries such as mining and manufacturing. And this includes, but is not limited to, repealing or amending the Impact Assessment Act and the oil tanker ban. We're also working to repeal the net zero power regulations and the proposed oil and gas production cap. We also call on the federal government to repeal their electric vehicle mandate that comes into effect next year. Last year, only 4.2% of the cars sold in Alberta were zero-emission vehicles. And the federal government's EV mandate says that 20% of cars sold in 2026 must be zero emissions vehicles. We buy about 200,000 cars, so that would be about 40,000 cars. So we would have to buy nearly every single zero emission vehicle manufactured in Ontario last year to hit the 20% target. And we're just one province. So removing federal barriers will allow Alberta and Ontario to attract investment and project partners we need to get shovels in the ground, grow industries, and create jobs. I'm excited to continue collaborating with Ontario so we can reach our share.
I think that's good. Did you see Doug Ford visibly gulp and then start to sway when she talked about repealing the EV mandates, because he's been the recipient of a lot of EV mandate welfare in his province?
You know, Sheila, I thought that was the only visible clip in that little clip where he was, it seemed to me he was nodding in the affirmative.
He went like this. You can see it.
Oh, he was repelling?
I just saw him have like a big gulp and then sort of, because, you know, he is the guy that to buy off Ontario and earn their support, he's been the recipient of billions and billions of dollars in electric vehicle manufacturing bailouts. And now those companies are going broke here and abroad.
100%. I believe the Stellantis EV plant in Windsor last week announced major layoffs. I think you're right, Sheila, your prediction. These EV battery plants are going to end up as giant white elephant casinos in the future. This is a fantasy this 2035 goal of not allowing new fossil fuel vehicles to be sold in Canada, the idea that they have to be full EV or plug-in hybrids. It is not going to happen looking at market share, looking at the price of these vehicles, unless you want to bring in Chinese EVs. Do you know, Sheila, there are several companies in China, if our viewers are interested, get the recent issue of Motor Trend magazine, that are building all kinds of EV vehicles at incredibly cheap prices. That's because their EV industry is heavily subsidized by the Chinese government. And basically, you don't think China is paying the kind of wage unionized automakers have here. So is that the solution? And if that is the solution, so much for elbows up, protecting Canadian jobs. Because you know, Sheila, when you're looking at EVs and plug-in hybrids, they're way more than an average fossil fuel combustion vehicle. But one last thing on this point, I know precisely where Danielle Smith stands on these issues, but where does Doug Ford stand, Sheila? I mean, and is he having an identity crisis? Because I saw a photo, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone will reach out and say, Menzies, you're a dummy. Don't you know an AI-generated photo when you see it? But I saw a photo, I think, of Doug Ford at Fraulein Freeland's backyard barbecue. He had the biggest smile on his face. It looked like he just had his second helping of cherry cheesecake. Anyway, the point is, who does Doug Ford support right now? Is it, I think we have the video, the photograph. Sheila, is this real? Fraulein Freeland and other assorted senior liberals at this barbecue, and there is Doug Ford with a huge smile on his face. What team is Doug Ford playing for right now?
Team Ford.
Yeah.
That's it. I think that his only ideology is power. You know, I watched that Rob Ford documentary on Netflix in preparation for an interview that I did with Anyways, I was filling in for Ezra, and right, thank you, Olivia. Her name completely escaped me. It just entered my brain and then went out the other side. I was prepping for an interview with Sue-Ann Levy because I was filling in for Ezra while he was on the cruise. So I thought, as much as I hate this, I'm already a Netflix subscriber. I'm just going to watch this stupid thing. And yeah, they didn't round up very many people who actually liked Rob Ford in that documentary. But I will tell you that Doug Ford's hate of the media and his love for his brother was on full display. And now he's just fully embraced the same leftist media and the same leftist politicians who eviscerated poor Rob while he was still alive. I don't understand it.
Sheila, the biggest mistake I made, and I would suggest millions of Ontarians made, was that Rob Ford and Doug Ford are two peas in a pod. They're just the same. That has been proven 100% false. And I go back to, I think it's one of the greatest political slogans crafted in our young century, which was Rob Ford's respect for taxpayers. What we were just talking about a few seconds ago of Doug Ford contributing tens of billions of dollars for EV battery plants shows the disrespect for tax dollars. We've seen him flip-flopping on numerous items, going back to 2018, stopping the radicalized McGuinty-Wynne sex ed curriculum. It is more radicalized today than it ever has been. Doug Ford is a closet liberal, and he is increasingly coming out of the closet, I would suggest.
I think he only cares about power and being in power, and he'll do whatever it takes to do that. That's why he aligned himself with the Liberals during the campaign. That's why he called an early election for himself, striking while the iron's hot. And now he sees how popular Premier Smith is, and so he's trying to align himself with her as he sees the Liberals their prospects fading. So the guy is just a snake.
And you know, Sheila, I'll tell you when I get super nervous. The moment I hear of Doug Ford taking French lessons, I think once again I'll have to put an exit strategy on my to-do list for Canada, because there are all kinds of rumors that he covets being the new leader of the Conservatives. And I wouldn't put it past him to attempt such a thing, Sheila.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be your problem once Alberta's gone. Just kidding.
Yeah, that's true.
We've got one more clip from these guys, and then we've got Alexa coming up after that. So let's see how tight we can keep this. Smith and Ford speak on the importance of not relying on Donald Trump's America and building up Canada's energy infrastructure. Let's listen to this. By the way, that denim outfit she has on is quite lovely. I love the embroidery on it. Anyways.
Do you know what, Sheila? I'm so glad you mentioned that. I was going to mention it, but I didn't want to sound like I was sexist.
It's gorgeous.
Something about a lady in that kind of a cowgirl outfit, to me, it screams wholesomeness. She looks like such a sweet, wholesome lady. I don't know what it is, the cowboy hat and the embroidery on the denim. That's what it gives to me. I love that look.
Okay, let's hear it.
On the pipelines front, I'm curious what your actual plan is there. There's not necessarily a whole lot of love for oil pipelines necessarily heading east. So what can we expect in terms of concrete, where it might start, where it might go?
Well, first of all, I'd say we have done lots of polling on the attitude towards pipelines. And in every single province, it's a majority, and in some cases well above 70%. I don't think Ontario is any different. Ontario, I think, knows that with Line 5 right now, it goes through Michigan to feed Sarnia, and that is puts them in a precarious position. The governor of Michigan has been trying to shut that pipeline down for years. And so we have always felt that having a made in Canada solution with the pipeline option going to not only Ontario and Quebec, it just makes sense from an energy security point of view. And the world changed in November. And I think Canadians understand that we've got to start acting like a country. We've got to start supporting each other. And I think that is the prevailing sentiment in the country. But I'll let Premier Ford speak for his own people.
Well, thank you, Premier Smith. Premier Smith was bang on. We have the governor of Michigan constantly threatening to close down the pipeline. Do you know the disaster that would create in Ontario? It would basically shut down Pearson International Airport, largest airport in the country. Prices would go through the roof. I'm tired of relying on the United States. And let's make no mistake about it. I love the U.S. I love the American people. But there's one person that's causing a problem right now, and that's President Trump. We want to move forward. We want to build the AMCAN fortress. But the days of relying on the United States 100%, they're done. They're gone. We're going to start being reliant and self-reliant on each other. We have the strongest. We're an economic powerhouse in Canada.
Okay,
we're going to continue growing.
I think that's enough. I've heard enough of his nonsense. I'm not hard of remembering. He's the guy who said turn off the pipeline to the United States.
With a smile on his face.
And Danielle Smith said, excuse me, that means that we're turning off the pipeline to you, because the pipeline, line 5, line 9, they go through the United States to get to you. And so now all of a sudden he's like, oh, like they're always threatening to turn the pipeline off. And it's like, you threatened to cause a blackout in upstate New York. Like, what's wrong with you?
You know, you're so right, Sheila. It's almost as though Doug Ford right now is channeling Bob Hope, back in the day when he said, when you're in Chicago, you give him the Windy City stuff. When you're in New York, you give him the Big Apple stuff. Yep. As though we're not paying attention. And one last point on this before we go to Alexa. Would Toronto Pearson International being shut down, would that be a bad thing necessarily? It is the worst airport in the world.
Yeah, I'm
including third world airports in that, Sheila. It's always misery. That is the factory of misery in the GTA. So I don't think that's a big loss. If I have to travel to Buffalo to fly out, so be it.
Yeah, he's I think Danielle must have shown him a map and said, okay, here's where the pipelines go to. So now do you realize why it's a bad idea? And then he gets in front of it and it's like, they're always threatening to turn off the pipeline. And you guys were pressuring Danielle Smith to turn off the pipeline until she told you that you would be choking yourself out too. We have Alexa standing by, but before we bring her in, let's go to the video of the police.
Yes.
Threatening to arrest her.
Shameful.
for recording Islamic prayers in public in front of the Notre-Dame Basilica. And it's part of an anti-Israel demonstration. It is very clearly about a show of dominance and superiority. And the police decided that she was the problem here and went after her.
Yep.
So let's watch this.
En ce moment, je t'ordonne de circuler parce qu'en ce moment, si tu me dis ça, je vais t'arrêter pour entrave.
Entrave de quoi? Pour avoir fait mon travail de journaliste?
Il est 17h28, tu avertis formellement. Si tu continues à créer la situation, ça va être une entrave.
Quelle situation? Parce que je fais mon travail de journaliste. Tu n'as pas le droit de me toucher. Je n'ai pas le droit de me toucher.
C'est un ordre, sinon je t'arrête pour entrave. Fait que là, je vais te demander de circuler. L'ordre est donné. C'est ta décision à partir de maintenant.
Sérieusement, on se voit en cours. Je veux avoir ton badge number.
Il y a un arrêt pour ça, madame. Il y a un arrêt.
Je veux avoir ton badge number.
7737.
Toi aussi.
5119.
Votre nom, c'est?
Cyber.
Vous?
À l'air.
À l'air. Vous?
Secto. Allez.
Non, parce qu'on va te voir en cours, monsieur. Savez-vous que je suis en cours contre vous? Pour avoir refusé de nous protéger. D'avoir refusé de nous protéger, vous avez juste... en ce moment, j'ai le droit d'être ici. C'est un lieu public. Et je suis ici. Je m'en fiche, messieurs. Vous ne protégez pas les journalistes. Et on l'a vu. Non, vous ne l'avez pas vu. Mais oui, vous m'avez empêché de faire mon travail de journaliste.
Non, tu fais très bien ton travail de là. T'as pas besoin d'être un livre.
Parce que vous pensez que les prières de rue ne sont pas d'actualité, monsieur. En passant, là, en ce moment, il y a un projet de loi pour bannir ces prières de rue-là, monsieur.
On n'est pas sur la même longueur d'onde.
OK, vous êtes du côté des musulmans, des islamistes? Parfait, on le sait maintenant. On le savait. Monsieur, j'ai le droit d'être ici.
That's outrageous. Completely infuriating. You are in front of a mob designed to intimidate people, and your crime there is refusing to be intimidated by them. So the police come along and do their best to intimidate you. This is our friend Alexa Laovie. She is the strong-willed lady in that footage, standing up to the police who are preventing her from doing her job, which she's allowed to do in a free country for now. Alexa, tell us about what was happening there. Tell us about these demonstrations at the Basilica. I mean, really every week.
But first of all, they are targeting specific places as the Israel consulate and sometimes the U.S. consulate. But most recently, they are going again and again and again to Notre-Dame Basilica. They are targeting that place of worship. It's clearly to show dominance, as you just mentioned before the video. And our point was just to go and to film the prayer. We didn't go and follow the protest. We just wanted to capture that prayer because it's actually newsworthy. Since at this moment there is a bill to ban all public prayer of all faith. So Christian, Jews, all other faiths will be actually banned to do any kind of a public demonstration because of the abuse of one faith. So I went there and I was on the other side of the street and I was just waiting for them to start the prayer before going a little bit closer to be able to film with my phone up in the air because I knew they would probably try to block my view with board or flag or any kind of like items that they can use. But some of them came to me and they actually acknowledged that I have the rights to film. But it took like less than a minute. Then other protesters got violent, came into my face, tried to stop me to record that prayer. And suddenly the police came to me and say like, why are you not letting them pray? Let them pray. And I was like, I'm letting them praying. I'm actually just recording their prayer. because I want to show that what is going on in Montreal. And a lot of people want to know what is going on with those public prayer, because there is no mainstream media who dare to come and to record what is happening. There were no other media than us. And
sorry to interrupt, but this is not the first time that they have been intimidating. They poured water on Guillaume on June 22nd. Police were there. Police did nothing. This is targeted harassment of the journalists who are trying to show the world what's happening there, and the police are doing repeatedly nothing.
Or if they do something, they are arresting violently independent journalists, as Natasha last time in April. So they are doing this in front of those radical protesters who feel emboldened to go even further, because they know they will be protected by the police, and the police will actually stop any kind of independent news outlet to report on what they are doing, because they know that we are going to show the truth. We are not going to paint them as like, oh, look at them, good people. They are doing nothing really wrong, when they actually do hate speech. Those march are hate march. They are praying repeatedly in front of place of worship that is not there. Why targeting a Christian place of worship for doing this? So it's all what we want to show, but the police seems to just want to protect them. And I don't know if this is, because I don't know if you remember, but back in the day, the SPVM faced a class action for systemic racism in the past. And they lost because the mayor of Montreal acknowledged that that was a problem. And after that, they put in place Fadi Daguerre, that is the new chief of police, because he too acknowledged that this was a problem of systemic racism. The SPVM, and I don't know who was actually ordered to pay, but it was something like $171 million to that class action. So now I feel that they don't want to be labeled to do racist action towards those group of people, because mainly what I saw is like every time that I'm trying to say something or do something in face of those protesters, they call me racist, Islamophobe, or other kind of name. So I'm thinking, do they are scared to have another class action for racism if they are doing something?
Well, if I may, Alexa, watching that video makes my blood boil. Certainly, I've been there. In a way, you got off lightly. I was arrested, as you know, 5 times in the space of 5 months last year for practicing journalism in a public space. It's especially offensive to law enforcement, it would seem, if you are dealing with anything that is Islamist or transgender. That puts a target on your back. To Sheila's point, I 100% believe the only reason they are there in front of the Basilica, this is an example of Islamist exceptionalism. They are pushing the envelope. They are saying, we dare you to shut us down. Once upon a time, the Catholic Church was so important in Quebec. It's less so now, I grant you that. My question, Alexa, it's a hypothetical one. Not that we're ever going to see it, I think. But if a group of other people of another faith went to a mosque in Montreal in those numbers and started this kind of a ceremony, I wonder what the response of law enforcement would be. I would guess, knowing what I know from the Montreal police, they wouldn't be in protection mode. They would go into whack 'em and stack 'em mode if any of the Islamists were to object. What are your thoughts on that?
I think they would be labeled as Islamophobic if they are going and pray in front of the mosque. And I think the police officer will have take that really seriously as like almost like a hate crime to do this. But when it comes to synagogue or Christian place of worship as this basilica, seems like this is okay. There is no danger there. There is no kind of like other perspective than just like it's just a prayer. And I feel that there is a huge double standard in Canada, and they know how to play it. I'm talking about those protesters. They know how to play it. They know how to use our rule, regulation, and laws to push their agenda, because there is clearly an agenda behind all this. And and by the way, I don't know if Efron have the video I sent earlier, but I want to show you, because the police were repeatedly saying, oh, you can film from afar. But the protester was praying the other side of the truck. And so my camera, same if I can zoom, I can't see through a car, you know?
Yeah.
So I need to film from on top.
Yeah.
And so I arrived to film next to the truck, and I just put my phone really high there. Look at how they remove me, grab my bag, push me, and say, stop creating a situation. I say, you just created the situation. You actually removed me when I had the space for me to film the prayer.
Alexa, a very quick follow-up. What is behind law enforcement acting this way? And we see it in other cities as well. Is this individual police officers having, I don't know, Stockholm syndrome, that they actually are getting friendly with the demonstrators? Or do you think, and this is what I suspect, at least in Toronto, this is coming from the senior brass, perhaps even the mayor, saying, when you see peaceful counter-demonstrators, when you see members of the independent press, shut it down? What is your estimation of what's going on behind the scenes?
My personal analysis, I think it's something to do with Valérie Plante, the mayor of Montreal. First of all, because when I was recording, and I'm paraphrasing right now, one of the police officers asked me if I was going to be a candidate for the mayoral race. And he asked me because in that way I would be able to change the order that they receive. So in my perspective, it's like, so you just admit that your order is coming from the mayor.
And
Good
it's
point.
political. Yeah.
Because why would you say that when I didn't talk about Valérie Plante or anything? He actually went straight to, because we are going to have an election, I think it's this year, because Valérie Plante is not going to be the candidate. But the thing is, all the candidates almost for being a mayor of Montreal are all leftists. So I don't think nothing's going to change.
You know, and Alexa, if I may too, in the Department of Double Standards, which you brought up, I would be fascinated if a member of the mainstream media, the legacy media, especially a female, if they were treated that way by law enforcement. I'm arguing there'd probably be a royal commission struck tomorrow on the imposition of law enforcement against freedom of the press. But we don't see the legacy media covering these events. Why? I would argue they don't want other people to see this seamier side of multiculturalism, or they are on Team Hamas. Your thoughts?
I think it's a little bit of this, and I think it's a little bit also because I spoke with one of the cameramen for one of the mainstream media. I say, you know, we got attacked and we refuse to go anymore. So I don't know if it's a mix of everything, but you see, it worked with the mainstream media for not reporting on them anymore. We will not back down because I think it's important to show the truth. Yeah. And it's not because the police is abusing of their power to say, oh, we are going to remove you because of what, which law, which regulation, because I'm in a public space. I have the rights to do my journalism. So we are going to continue and to expose the corruption, to expose the double standard and the hypocrisy that is running deep in politics, but also in law enforcement. And I am so sad because I am back the blue first. I like the police, we need them. But when it comes to this kind of behavior and this kind of order that we don't know where the order come from, it makes me sick.
Yeah.
Hey, Alexa, I hate to cut you short, but they need the studio right away. And I should tell everybody how they can support you and your work out there. Now, we frequently and routinely hire bodyguards who work with you. But bodyguards don't work against the police. Right. They have to listen to the police. But we do always want to keep you safe from these Hamas lunatics out there. And the best way to do that is to support Alexa and the rest of our team at journalistdefensefund.com. Alexa, thanks so much for refusing to be intimidated by the bad guys, but also the bad guys who sometimes wear a uniform.
And Alexa, thank you for your bravery. Thank you for keeping your composure. You are one of the bravest reporters I know. L is for Laovie and L is for Linus. And that is what you are, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alexa.
Bye.
Alrighty, we have one chat here. It's from JP Power says, Mr. Menzies, just wanted to say that you're my favorite. I got into this movement during COVID after being left-wing as a youth. I love how you go to the streets and ask tough questions in your videos.
Wow. Well, you know what? That is fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you for seeing the light. You know, what this viewer reminds me of, Sheila, is the famous Winston Churchill quote. I hope I have the age is correct, but I think he said, if a man is not a liberal when he's 20, he has no heart. If a man is not a conservative when he's 40, he has no brain. So there you go. Another one that has seen the light and come over to the right side.
Yeah, you know what? There are no ideological retroactive purity tests on this side. If we've properly evangelized you with a good word of freedom and you've accepted it into your heart, get on over here. Yeah. You belong with us. Let's just hit the Daily Cringe really fast because I know they need the studio.
Yes.
But it is a recidivist on the Daily Cringe, Olivia Chow, dancing the salsa. Oh my God. She's in some sort of dance-off. I just, you know, it just seems like that you need a more serious person dealing with Toronto problems. Like, I know Danielle Smith likes to have fun, but also she is seriously dealing with broader issues. And so I can balance it, but it just seems like Olivia Chow just does stupid stuff and doesn't deal with the big stuff.
You know, Sheila, 100%. I think Olivia Chow is Toronto's first cosplaying mayor, whether it's a salsa event, the Pride flag raising, Caravana when she dresses up as a Caribbean dancer. And by the way, I thought on the left, cultural appropriation is wrong, but I guess as Olivia Chow play the Asian card and it kind of evens out. I just want to know what the rules are, Sheila. You know, but it is disgraceful. And next year is the Toronto mayoral race. My hope after seeing that latest cosplay event is that those on the right come together and put one good candidate forward, stop splitting the vote, which is what happened last time. Otherwise, we'd have Anthony Furey as our mayor, and he'd be doing a really good job, I think. That is what I'm hoping for, Sheila. I can't imagine after consecutive double-digit tax increases, Olivia Chow is winning the hearts and minds of Torontonians. Time for regime change. I mean, talk about Nero fiddling as Rome burns.
Yeah.
What a disgrace.
Can we just say that we should all be grateful that she's not in one of those scantily clad costume things where she looks like a half-bird human being, like she did at Caravana or whatever it is, the Caribbean Festival last year. At least I'm not looking at her groin in this outfit. So glass half full. But let's wrap the show, please, David.
Please, I scare easy. Anyways, folks, with that enduring image burned in my head, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. I want to thank the viewer for that super chat. Greatly appreciated. I will be back here with Sheila Gunn-Reid on Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I believe it's Sheila and the lovely Lise tomorrow. Yep. In the meantime, as always, stay safe and stay sane.